Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. All right, I'm here today with a look at the new game from Red Raven Games, Sleeping Gods. Have my pipe here, some whiskey. This is a pipe and whiskey game. The pipe has nothing in it, it's not lit, but the last time I did use this pipe, I was on a sailing trip actually. A couple buddies of mine and myself, we sailed from Shilshole Bay Marina near Seattle. We sailed out into the Puget Sound, around Blake Island, through one of the straits, one of the channels, into a little city called Poulsbo. And we stayed the night in Poulsbo and we sailed back the next morning. And it was a lot of fun. It was also quite stressful. Sailing is a lot of work, especially we had a pretty small vessel, like a 20-foot, I think, ship or vessel they call them. I'm not sure what the what the proper names are, but it was not a relaxing time. We had to do a lot of work. When we were coming into Poulsbo, we had to time the tide just right because the rocks at the bottom of the strait coming in to the little marina there, you had to come in at high tide because at low tide the rocks were tall enough that they could hit the keel that hangs underneath your ship. So that was stressful. Coming back the next morning was this huge fog bank, and we were on the east side of the Puget Sound. We had to get to the west side of the Puget Sound, or opposite. We were on the west side of the Puget Sound. We had to get into the Shilshole Bay Marina on the east side of the Sound. And to do that, you have to cross a shipping channel with these huge shipping boats that are going super fast, and they're gigantic. And our the compass on our ship was broken. It was actually stressful, even though we were only like a few miles off of shore. Once we passed through that fog bank and we could see the shore, I felt elated. Like I felt like some seaman out at sea and like seeing land and like land ho. It was really weird, and I've always been fascinated with sailing and sailing trips, and I've often wanted a game that gives me that feeling of exploration, of being out at sea and not knowing what you're going to find. Like the days of great exploration on our planet are pretty much over. Everything's been explored, right? And so for a game to give me that feeling of being in the open waters, of setting a course, of charting my course and going to weird islands and discovering new little cities and inhabitants and weird things. That is something that I've longed for a very long time. I was hoping a game like Skull Tales would give it to me. We're still waiting for Everrain. There are a couple more games out. Maybe Forgotten Waters might do that, but I've heard that game doesn't play very well solo. But luckily for me, luckily for us, Sleeping Gods does that. And luckily for everyone who is playing or about to play Sleeping Gods, I can say, I think without a doubt, the game might take a huge nosedive in the next 10 hours, but I doubt that. I am prepared to say right now that Sleeping Gods is a masterpiece. This game has delivered to me a feeling that I just don't get very often in games, and that is this the like ultimate illusion of exploration and of adventure. This game is really, really something special, and I can't even like put it into words how amazing this game is. So you're kind of far back from the table, and the reason why I'm doing that is I am in the midst of this campaign going on. Now, The game isn't a super long campaign. I think probably 10 to 15 hours. And through some clues I've gathered, I have a feeling that you are meant to play the campaign multiple times before you actually beat it. And you could also save your campaign at any time, and it's really easy to save your campaign. Um, but I usually don't care about spoilers. But in this game, Sleeping Gods is like 75% of the game is discovery, is finding new things and new places, new people. And so I didn't want to do a close-up look of my table right now. We will get to some more spoiler filled episodes in a bit once more people have been able to play the game. But for right now, I just kind of wanted to give you some preliminary thoughts on the game. And if you are on the fence about buying it, hopefully I'm not trying to convince you, but if you're on the fence, hopefully the things I say will push you one way or the other. I'm definitely going to be ultra positive on this game, so I don't want you to feel like I'm pushing you to buy this game, but that is the way that it's going to sound. So first of all, I have never had a better first experience opening a box in this game. This is like the gold standard for first impressions in games now. When you open the box, you are greeted with a quick start guide. This walks you through a very easy to follow beginning scenario where you learn about the characters, you learn about some of the core mechanisms, you learn how some of the more complex things like combat are handled. You learn about the different kinds of stat challenges that you're going to be facing. You learn about the map. You eventually learn about your ship. And then it pushes you into the main game. And then you are greeted with the rulebook, a wonderfully written rulebook, beautifully laid out. The font is not tiny. It's well organized. There are pictures and examples. It's just a very, very pleasant rulebook to read that is quite easy to learn the game. However, there are two errors, and well, there's one error and it's repeated both in the quick start guide and in the rulebook, and it's really weird. There are 4 starting cards, and both of these say that they are adventure cards. And so what a lot of people are doing is, another really nice component is this like treasure chest of all of your quest and adventure cards. Oh, it's beautiful. People are like looking through their adventure cards to find those 4 starting cards. They're not in the adventure deck. They are actually in the market deck. And the rule book eventually says that market cards are adventure cards that you can buy. So at the beginning of the game, when you're looking for those 4 starting cards, go to the market deck. Don't spoil yourself by having to look through that adventure deck. But then you learn the game through that introduction scenario. It gives you a couple quests that are going to point you in a couple directions that you want to go. You are also greeted with this. Now this is laminated, but the game, I laminated it, but the game comes with a Universal Head rules summary. This is so huge because Universal Head and the Esoteric Order of Gamers. He is, I don't know the gentleman's name. I think it's one guy that does all the work. He might have a small team, but he is the best rules writer in the industry. When I see that a game has a Universal Head rules summary, it automatically fills me with trust for that game because I know that the rules were able to be written in a concise manner that I can read and relearn the game from. Rule books are really good for learning games, but they're terrible for relearning games. When we put the game back up on our shelf and get it out in a year, having to reread a full rule book is a pretty big waste of time. But when we have one of these Universal Head rules summaries, we're in good hands. And seeing this in the box when I opened up the game, it filled me with trust for the game. I knew I was going to be in good hands, and I was. Other things you're going to see when you open up the Kickstarter version of the game is the dungeon expansion. So this will be at retail, but it is included in the base game box for the Kickstarter version. The dungeon expansion is basically special places that you can explore that are a little more involved than other places. I have not experienced one yet. I am about to get to one though on my next turn. I'm super excited. Another thing you're going to see is these journal logs where you can keep track of your ship. This is how you save. You can keep track of your experience points. You keep track of your campaign here. And then on the back of each one of those is a map of the area that you're going to be playing the game and exploring, where you can keep your notes on this map. Amazing. And a whole sheet of those. And then you get this achievement list. There seems to be some kind of legacy component to this game, where as you go through the game and you keep playing it and you keep unlocking endings and certain totems and achievements, you are going to be able to carry things over into future campaigns. I also went ahead and laminated one of my map sheets just so I could have a laminated map. And then you get these amazing storage boxes that you can keep everything. You get a storage bag where you can keep all of your different characters and their different components that you will get during the game, during the campaign. You get 2 more boxes to keep other components in. Everything fits nicely back into the box. And then, like I said, you get this really nice magnetic box here that has all of your quest cards, of which there are just a ton of different quests in this game. All of your adventure cards, which are going to be like special items and people you're going to get to meet. And then your event cards. And the event cards are different things that you're going to have to, challenges you're going to have to overcome from turn to turn. So what is Sleeping Gods? That was the experience. Oh, you also get a box to keep your solved quests in. So I opened the box and I saw this beautiful material, beautiful art, a great introduction into the game, its world, a beautifully written rules summary, an easy to learn game. This game is like dead simple, and that's one of the best things about it. But what is Sleeping Gods? So Sleeping Gods, you are playing as a crew. When you play solo, you have to play 9 characters, but it's not really playing 9 different characters. It's more like playing one crew made up of 9 different characters. Each of the crew members is going to have their own sheet here. It's going to have some stats on the side. It's going to have some combat stats. It's going to have their health. Each crew member has a couple special abilities that they have, and they will have a little story on the back. And then as you're playing, you can upgrade the crew member with different ability cards. Very crucial to do early in the game, to try to get as many ability cards out as you can. But there are 9 of these different crew members, including Captain Odessa here. And she is like the main, kind of like, she's the captain. And when you're playing multiple people, multiple players, she is like a group character, and then you divide the rest of the crew as evenly as possible throughout the other players. But when you're playing solo, you do play with all of them, but it's not a chore at all. And so you are playing as this crew, the crew of this boat, this vessel called the Manticore, and you were sailing home and something happened and you got teleported to this other world where there are sleeping gods, and you have to quest through this atlas, through this land, this open sea, trying to locate these totems, a certain number of totems that you can use to wake the sleeping gods to help you get back to your home world. And that is pretty much the game. That is what you are trying to do. Easier said than done, because really you don't have a ton of direction from the beginning. You're kind of left like wondering, like, where should I go? What should I do? And that is really where this sense of exploration comes in. You are given some direction through these quest cards, and the quest cards are really cool. Sometimes you will have to look at the maps to find, might say a quest might say that there is a shipwreck to the north of a volcano, and so you might look at the map, try to find a volcano, and then there might be a little ship that you see with a number. Sometimes it'll say, you head west from such and such city, you head east from this landmark. And each quest also has a single keyword at the bottom. And those keywords, they're like trigger words that when you go to one of the numbered spaces on the map, you are going to turn to the Book of Tales here. Huge Book of Tales. And sometimes when you turn to a certain number, it'll say if you have this keyword, go to subsection. And so the keywords are really what you want to pay attention to. They're going to unlock better and more interesting options within the storybook. And let me tell you guys, the storybook is fantastic. It's super well written. The entries are short and to the point. There are incredibly difficult choices that you're going to be making, and exciting things. I mean, there's one I had just now. I went into this like cave at the bottom of a volcano. There was a titan in there. He was like smashing his hands down at me, trying to kill me. I had to, figure out if I needed to run past his hands or maybe hide, slip into a cave and wait until maybe he forgot about us. And all this time I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I finally made it out of the cave. And in that certain section, there were like 8 paragraphs that I didn't even see. I've also talked to a few people, asked them, hey, how many of you have this keyword? One had it, one didn't. So I believe that there's going to be a lot of replayability in how you explore. I think people are going to be able to have pretty different, divergent paths that are probably all going to come back at some point. People are probably going to be experiencing the same things as other players on their playthrough, but probably experiencing them in different orders. On your map, you're also going to want, when you find a location that has a keyword, you can circle the number here and write the little keyword so it gives you an idea. Like, so right now I have on one, I have a number circled with the keyword tomb. So I'm trying to find like a quest that has that keyword. When I find a quest that has that keyword tomb, I can come back to that location and unlock a further mystery of that location. Another thing you're going to be doing is lots of skill tests and challenges. And this game doesn't use dice. You can use a D6, the book says, but it's far better to use this ability deck. And what this ability deck is, it's a number of things. You're going to draw, and it's going to have a number from 1 to 6 in the corner. That's going to basically be your D6 roll. However, there's fewer 1s and fewer 6s than there are 2, 3, 4, and 5s. These are also going to be special powers that you can spend command points to attach to your crew members, and each one of those is going to give them a different thing. When your ship gets damaged, you're going to draw one of these and you're going to apply the damage to the fate number. When you do your challenges, you're going to say, okay, like there might be a strength challenge, so you might have a character with a strength icon, that's going to give you a +1, and then maybe you've attached a strength ability to that character, that's going to be a +2, and then you draw a card and you're going to add that 3, so that's a 5, and then the challenge is going to give you a number that you have to beat. And so that's how the challenges happen. There are all kinds of ways to mitigate those challenges through spending these blue tokens. They're called command tokens. And each character has a number of different abilities. Mac, one of her abilities is you can spend 2 command tokens to give you a +1 to a challenge. So there are all kinds of different ways to mitigate the luck. As you are moving through the sea, through the lands, each turn you're going to draw an event from a event deck. And there are going to be different kinds of things. Some are good. You might find treasure. You might come across a sea serpent or a giant turtle or pirates or merchant vessels that want to trade with you, all kinds of things like that. You can go into port to go into an inn and heal up and repair your ship. There is a market deck for when you go to the market of all different kinds of things you can buy. This is maybe one small complaint I have about the game is I do wish that the market deck was a little bigger. One of the main things you're going to be buying in the market deck are recipes. And these recipes, you're going to be spending a resource such as like vegetables or meat or wheat to make these recipes to make biscuits and gravy, and then you're going to be able to heal a certain number of wounds or fatigue from your characters. Fatigue, whenever a crew member participates in a challenge, if you want them to add their stats to the challenge, you add a fatigue to that character. If they ever have 2 fatigue, well, then they're not as good in combat and they can't be used for any more challenges until you clear that fatigue off. So between the fatigue, the wounds, these command points, and your materials, your items, those are the resources that you are going to be managing while playing this game. One thing this game doesn't have, and I'm so thankful because I was afraid it would, is a constant threat of needing resources just to survive, just to move on to the next turn, like survival games, something like Seventh Continent. You don't need to feed your characters if they are, if they don't have damage and are not fatigued. You don't need to worry about feeding them. The game states right in the beginning that your ship has enough fuel for the campaign. You don't need to worry about fuel. I was afraid that there was going to be a lot of upkeep, a lot of survival things where it would kind of bog down in just trying to maintain to get to the fun. But at every single turn, every single time this game makes a choice, it pushes the fun out in front. The fun just happens. It's almost impossible for me not to get completely lost in this game. I feel like these 9 cardboard characters, I feel like they're like my friends, my brothers and sisters in adventure. I don't really know how to how to convey that in other words, but it's so well done. I am so in love with this game. I want to play it all the time. I've been constantly thinking about it, and I cannot wait to see where this goes. There are other things that you're going to be able to get. So like some of the starting items you're going to have. These are starting items. So you're going to have this this passenger, and I know you can get other passengers, and she will help you draw ability cards. I have this gear here, and I can use that to redraw a fate card. I found a dog called Bigfoot the dog, and he can help me pass strength, perception challenges, or he can help defend against damage. I have this Wayfarer's gear, and that helps me when I want to do a certain kind of like sailing challenge. Just so many amazing things, and this game it is constantly surprising me by how many times this game does the right thing. All too often, I feel like sometimes a game does some things right and then it does something wrong. It does one thing right, 2 things wrong. 2 things right, 1 thing's wrong. And it's kind of frustrating. I've been having a lot of more frustrating experiences lately. There is not a single thing frustrating about Sleeping Gods. From the moment I opened the box, to the moment I got it on the table, to the moment I learned the game, all through the last 5 or so hours that I've been playing the game, it has been nothing but one pleasant, amazing, exciting moment, time from each moment. This game is just incredible. Oh, I haven't even talked about the combat. So you have this huge deck of enemies to fight, and the combat is really interesting. I'm going to show you 2 because these are the 2 that you fight in the tutorial. So these 2 minotaurs here you're going to fight. And you're going to put the cards like this on the table, and then you're going to do damage to them, and you're going to have to put the damage on their card to either block their health, to cover up their health, or to cover up the extra damage they do. You can do splash damage. So you see how this guy has a number 5 here? Well, he needs a 5 fate total to hit. This guy needs a 6. Well, let's say that you attacked him and you got your 5 and you were able to cover up this. You could apply splash damage to adjacent enemies onto their card, hitting him with only a 5 and not needing that 6, and so on. Harder enemies, sometimes they will have health that has 2, where you have to do 2 damage to cover up 1 health. Some of them will have special abilities that trigger at certain times. The combat is almost like a spatial puzzle, where you are figuring out the best way to cover up the damage, to apply splash damage, and you are figuring out just different ways the best way to cover up the damage, so you can mitigate the damage coming back to you and mitigate the bad things coming back to you. Really interesting system, super brutal. I've only actually had 1 fight so far. I've been pretty good at avoiding combat, and it was a disaster. These vampiric panthers or something, they killed like 3 of my crew members and damaged others. It was really bad. So I am a little scared of fighting in this game. I guess that could be one other small complaint I have, is when I went to fight those guys, I had no idea how powerful they would be, and they were a lot more powerful than my crew. I do wish that maybe there was a little more of an indication of the level of the enemies that you were going to fight. But yeah, so that is a kind of a broad overview of Ryan Laukait's of Red Raven Games Sleeping Gods, a game that has completely blown my mind. This is a top 10 game of all time right here, no doubt about it. How far up my top 10 is it going to go? I can't say. Right now, pretty high. I can tell you that. This is a game that I've been waiting my entire life for. It is an absolute masterpiece, and I cannot wait to play more. And so I'm going to end this review right now so I can play more and expect more thoughts on Sleeping Gods. So, all right, guys, we'll take it easy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye-bye.